keeping us to ground with how the Kampala flyover is taking shape, and those works hopefully will be completed by perhaps mid-year so that some of us can enjoy that beauty in reality. Now, away from that, as we continue on with this morning's affairs, hashtag morning at NTV, and guess what? You can actually stream onto your next destination on YouTube as well as Facebook. Just type in NTV Uganda and you'll be good to do. More so, this morning's conversation it's a very sensitive one. We're going to be looking into KCCA and matters regarding KCCA all through the course of this week. You've been seeing our news desk bringing to you news that is quite disturbing. The challenges that are faced with the authority. You do have the political wing versus the technical wing, and at some point that has resulted into fights here and there, interruption of law officers to just keep the peace within the council sittings. So council sittings threatened by inadequate funding, and KCCA council sittings in financial crisis all at the same time. Now, the executive director, Dorothy Chisaka, wrote to the Lord Mayor and Speaker indicating that the authority lacked the finances to facilitate the sitting. This forced the political leaders, including KCCA Speaker, and that is Zahara Ruyikira, Deputy Lord Mayor Doreen Nyanjura, and other councillors to conduct a crisis meeting to discuss the matter. Where is this leaving KCCA's implementation mandate? You do have guests with us in studio, but before we get to our guests, let's first give you a background of this particular conversation. All right, as we get to give you the background story of this conversation, so far I am joined by Mr. Hakim Kiza, who's a councillor from Rubaga North, and is going to be helping us give a better spectrum of what exactly is happening at KCCA. You're most welcome, councillor.
Thank you very much. I want to extend my greetings to the viewers of NTV and to the people of Kampala. My name is Kiza Hakim Saula. I'm representing the people of Rubaga North too, and also an executive secretary, or you can call me a minister, state minister at the level of KCCA under the governance of the Lord Mayor Yasirukwago. I'm in charge of civil works and physical planning plus transport.
All right. Okay, so you came in here with a couple of documents, so for which I just want to look into them to give us backbone. One of them is a letter addressed to His Worship, the Lord Mayor, Kampala Capital City Authority, and it's in reference to the meeting of the City Executive Committee held on Tuesday, 7th March 2023, where the second budget call circular was supposed to be considered. And then pursuant to Section 10 to 13 of the Public Finance Management Regulations 2016 as amended, the PSST, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, released the second budget call circular on the 15th of February 2023. And the PFM regulations provide for the insurance of budget ceilings and update on the state of the economy to facilitate the preparation of vote budget estimates to and by the respective accounting officers as provided for under the budget framework paper. The accounting officers then submit the estimates to the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development for consolidation into the annual draft budget estimates by the 1st of April this year. It's a requirement, of course, that the accounting officer submits this ministerial policy statement by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. And of course, attached are those particular references, the budget cycle for the financial year 2023-2024. So where does it stem that KCCA is currently under a financial crisis?
Actually, that letter you have read is not considering the current budget we are implementing, because we are almost ending the third quarter of the current budget. You see, the financial year is running into 4 quarters. So in March of every financial year, it means that you are winding up the third quarter, entering into the last quarter. Every quarter consists of 3 months. So this letter addressed to the Lord Mayor was referring to the next financial year budget, because we are in the final stages of drafting the budget. This letter was addressed to the Road Mayor, where the ED was requesting the Road Mayor to convene a special sitting so that the council can exercise its mandate to finalize the processes of the budget. At City Hall, you know, when it goes from the City Hall, the minister takes it to the Parliament where it is concluded. So that letter was requesting, the ED was requesting the Road Mayor to liaise with the Speaker of the Council so that we can get a special sitting for the budget. And it was received on the 9th, as you have read. Then the Lord Mayor has a letter which he wrote to the Speaker communicating this process, where the Speaker also gazetted 15th, that was yesterday, as the date for a special sitting so that we councillors can exercise their mandate of appropriating the budget. Because all the crisis we have at KCCA begins from the budget. Because you hear the DED putting much emphasis on the budget issues, that we have exhausted all the monies which were supposed to be used for the council sittings and allowances.
So at what point did this money get exhausted? What is it that council has been doing between then and today that all that money seems to be gone and vanished through the wind? And is there accountability to what is being said by the executive wing?
Of course there is accountability. In one of the letters which was wrote here, there is where the ED was addressing the council on the expenditure issues. I don't know where I put it.
Let me
I'll get it.
Yeah.
But first of all, did we endorse the budget of this current budget as KCCA Council? We never sat to appropriate and pass the budget. Actually, it is the same process and criteria they are using to deny us our mandate, which is given to us by law, KCCA Act, to sit as council and appropriate. Why do they do so? I think it's because they put a lot of money in their directorates, which same money they don't want us to budget for our activities. For example, I heard the DED talking about this budget that we have spent 350 million shillings entirely for the entire financial year. But I was looking at the expenses of the DED.
Just to get it clearly,
yes.
That what ideally means that if that was their budget over 300 million shillings, then that means that the Ministry of Finance has given them all that money already?
That is where we query. We have so many queries on financial issues.
Because what makes KCCA special when
First
we do
of
have
all,
other ministry entities not getting to the full capacity of their budget on a quarterly basis?
This is one of the questions we are posing. First of all, as City Executive Committee, where I sit, that is the cabinet of this KCCA, and the council, where I sit as a member, we have never received any audit report for the last 3 quarters. Okay, let me say 2, because this 3rd quarter is not yet finished. We have never received the performance reports for the 1st quarter, for the 2nd quarter, and even this 3rd quarter. Then how do you come to tell us that you can give a report or a financial report on just an item? It is a section on the expenditures of the Authority Council. Why don't you bring it all so that we can know how much money was remitted from the Ministry of Finance and how much money was spent? So these are queries we need to know. So if you cannot give me the entire financial report of the last quarters, why do you bring in a section? Because at KCCA we have 10 directorates. You see, our current budget is 475 billion shillings. It is divided into these 10 directorates.
Okay.
You will find that the Directorate of Engineering could have like 85 billions. You have not showed me how the 85 billion was spent, but now you are bringing me a section of the council remunerations, expenditures, allowances, and whatever. Why don't you give me the entire financial quarterly financial reports.
Which is
so
mandated of them to present them to the council,
for sure,
so that you can have evaluation.
Yes. So these are queries we are posing before the technicals, but they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear. We were supposed to sit yesterday. It was gazetted, as it was requested in that letter you have read from the ED, to appropriate money for the next budget, 2023, 2024. To our surprise, the technical reported that the Minister of Kampala had already tabled the budget before Parliament. So we are asking who appropriated that budget. That is the next financial year budget. And you see the Deputy Executive Director complaining and also accusing us for not planning well. Who planned for this money we are using today with the same money they are saying that we exhausted it? Who planned for it? Because we didn't endorse the budget. So these are just gymnastics. These are just tactics they are posing. Actually, they want to put a blame on the elected leaders, but also for us, we are seeing everything, we are watching everything, and we are following.
Okay. All right. Let's have a background to this story to just give you more perspective into the matter of discussion regarding KCCA and its financial crisis this morning.
Kati buli council meeting etumalawo ko kumpi obukadde 13 n'ekitundu nga bamazeyo million kumpi 3.3 ku million 3.6 ze balina for the financial year.
Oba batusasudde oba tebatusasudde ffe tetugenda tetwajja wano kukolera ssente.
Mba temutuwadde allowance era tusazeewo tujjanga tuula tukolere bannakampala yadde nga temutuwadde za mafuta.
I beg to be excused on that matter because even the directorate that I come from is independent of management.
Budget gye bafunye eyo si yaffe nga bakansalazi n'obuyinza bwaffe tetulina byaffe bitwataddemu.
Okwo kuyisaamu amaaso Supreme Body eya KCCA gye bayita kanso ekintu ekyo kibi nnyo.
Ne batukkiriza okukola kye bayita viament okubaako we tutunula mu budget owakyali ssente ne tuziteeka watuufu we twagala okutuula tusobola okusaba supplementary budget.
Kati ate n'okufuna supplementary that's a process. Actually during the third quarter, actually fourth quarter, that's when butandika okusaba ssente endala.
All right. Well, that's the backbone of it. Now, turning to you, Mr. Chizra,
Yes.
in regards to continuing this conversation, this seems to be a recurring disobedience of the structure and the systems that ought to be apprehended and maintained by KCCA as authority and, of course, the council itself. We continue to see these mishaps between the executive director's office, between the technical and the council, and it's always about the money. But in light of what you have shared with us, that there's budgets that are presented before the Ministry of Finance without even your approval. Why is this a recurring situation?
Actually, I wouldn't be the very person who is required to answer that question, because for me and my colleagues, the political leaders, we are entitled and we try to implement the law as it is. In section 14 of KCCA Act 14B, clause C, we as city executive members have to present the annual budget to the council for approval, and we have not done it. Why haven't we done it? It's because the technical has not played their role. In section 19, the ED has the mandate. Actually, she's instructed to offer technical support to the state executive while developing the budget before we present it to council. Then when the council endorses the budget, that is when the Minister for Kampala has to take it to Parliament. But all these processes were jumped, were skipped, and the budgets are taken. So, may I think there is something hidden which is in that same budget. The same way you see that the DED is saying that we have exhausted 330 millions for the entire year, by the way. He's talking of the 54 councillors who constitute that council, spending 330 million. So if you subdivide this, if you divide this money into 54, you'll find that each councillor has almost spent 4 million entirely for the financial year. That is too much money. When we are auditing a lot of money, for example, I made a report on the ADB loan which we are getting worth $288 US million. If you translate it into Ugandan shillings, almost 1,060 billion shillings. We are trying to audit some of these councils, to audit that money, so that we cannot just be wasted. And you say that spending 330 million shillings is too much in protection of the 1,060 billion shilling. If you look at the payment, the remuneration of the DED, he earns 27 million monthly. If you multiply that money into 12 months a year, you'll find that him alone as a person has taken 340 million shillings.
Of the budget.
Of the budget. So
okay.
Him alone as a person is taking 340 million shillings annually. Then the 54 councillors are spending 330 millions combined. So can you compare? So who is wasting taxpayers' money? You who is taking the 340 millions? The
argument will be that the remuneration to that office is because of the pedigree that comes and the responsibility that comes with the office. But I believe that it's as much the same responsibility that is dispensed to councillors.
No, this is what I'm saying. That if for a viewer, for a person who is staying in Kampala, if you were to compare the two, one, we are elected, we are 54 representing the entire population of Kampala. The entire population of Kampala is 1.5 million people. And those who transit through the city every day, they are 4.5 million people. So we have the mandate of that entire population. For us, we are elected. For him, he was appointed by the president.
Okay. So in the budget money, what are some of the things that, as councillors, you were trying to push to be attended to as agencies for a better city?
We have a resolution, first of all, that every financial year we could be able to buy 10 garbage trucks. And we had a projection that if we can spend like 5 years buying 10 each financial year, we could be having like 50. Because you hear the outcry of people about the garbage which cannot be corrected. Because Kampala generates almost 2,500 tons of garbage every day. But what is corrected does not even exceed 1,800 tons. The rest of the tons remain there. But where do they take them? It's because of lack of capacity to correct. That's why we say that if each financial year we could be able to buy 10 garbage trucks, that at least in 5 years we could be having 50. If each division could have like 10, at least we can reduce on the percentage which remains there in the people. So these are some of the issues. Last time about health, we had planned to buy 10 ambulances in periodic COVID period. But what was purchased, we managed to get 7. We said that if at least each financial year we could add 5 ambulances to support the community. Now these are some of the issues we are planning. When it comes to my directorate, my Doctorate of Engineering, we have 2,010 kilometers which are gazetted for the entire city. What is tarmacked is around 616 kilometers. The balance is remaining. If you ask the
remaining balance is simply because those people voted unwisely for other parties.
No, we are not the one who...
No, I mean, you know, it's what we get to hear from some of those other leaders.
You know, you are bringing in politics, but that is true. That Mr. Museveni and his government, because they don't have control in the city in terms of the elected leaders, they are trying to frustrate the works so that they can portray an image that the elected leaders of opposition have failed. But for us, we want to work under the budget. We have a report from the World Bank that was for 2019 saying if Kampala can grow moderately, we need 1.4 trillion shillings per financial year. 1.4 trillion shillings per financial. That is 1,400 billion shillings. But do you know what we get right now? For the current budget, we have 475 billion. If you look at the budget ceiling, proposed budget for this next financial year, it was reduced to 370 billion. Now they have added some billions, I hear, because we have not even seen. Our mandate was for yesterday, if the budget was brought, that it was reduced from 475 billion to 410. But you want the city to move. You see the floods, you want to construct roads. We cannot, even in the budget which we get from, for engineering, which we used to get 7 to 8 billion for road construction. In the next budget, we have 10 billions. Only 10 billion.
For, you know, a population that's
on that money,
you do have so many buildings coming up left and right. Then, of course, the pressure of what is happening economically on the infrastructure of the city, it's not balancing in
I tell you, on that same money, you have to pay casual workers, you have to buy fuel for garbage trucks and engineering machines, you have to construct roads. Actually, what most surprisingly, and this is one of the issues we are fighting.
If I might ask, what is the reason that is being given for this budget cut?
The government says that they don't have money. Yet Kampala is alone contributes 75% of the national revenue from the outdoor, from trading licenses, all the revenue collected from Kampala. Kampala as capital city, we contribute 75%. And for us, we are crying to the government that could you give us, could you remit only 3% of what we contribute? If the current budget is 48 trillions, the national current budget, if you can remit 3% of that amount, we could at least get like 800 billion for the interest. At least there we can plan. But the government remits on its will. Whatever they want to give us is what they give us.
All right. Well, this is definitely a Kwagamaya state, and it's a conversation that is bringing to light a lot more. Mr. Hakim, Chi's Councillor Rubaga North is giving us this information, and of course it paints the picture of exactly how this stems down to you, the end user and the end beneficiary of Kampala as your city and your home. We're going to be taking a short breather. We're going to be returning shortly to better understand what are the alternatives, what's the way forward. Stay with us.
At NTV.
Well, it's an informative morning here and morning at NTV. Priscilla Regina Naluka is my name. Continuing on with our Kickstarter conversation. Council sittings threatened by inadequate funding and the financial crisis of the KCCA council meetings. We do have Councillor Rubaga North Hakim. She's having alluded to us so many factors. One of them is the fact that perhaps the politics is eating so much into the bedroom of KCCA, therefore hindering what ought to be done and dispensed by KCCA to make this city a livable, peaceful, harmonious and smart city, Kampala. Now, earlier on, we had shared with you some background to it, and we are pleased to be joined by Engineer Yimbazi David, who's the Deputy Executive Director, for which we want to backtrack to hear his statements and then pick it up from there.
Kati buli council meeting etumalawo ko kumpi obukadde 13 n'ekitundu nga bamazeyo million 13 ku million 36 zebalina for the financial year.
Oba batusasudde oba tebatusasudde ffe tetugenda tetwajja wano kukolera ssente.
Yomba temutuwadde allowance era tusazeewo tujjanga tuula tukolere bannakampala yadde nga temutuwadde za mafuta.
I beg to be excused on that matter, because even the directorate that I come from is independent of management.
Budget gye bafunye eyo si yaffe nga bakansalazi n'obuyinza bwaffe tetulina byaffe byetwataddemu.
Okwo kuyisaamu amaaso Supreme Body eya KCCA gye bayita kanso. Ekintu ekyo kibi nnyo.
Ne batukkiriza okukola kye bayita environment, okubaako we tutunula mu budget owakyali ssente ne tuziteeka watuufu we twagala okutuula. tusobola okusaba supplementary budget.
Katati nokufuna supplementary. That's a process. Actually during the third quarter, actually fourth quarter, that's when butandika okusaba sente endala.
One of the councillors says there in Luganda, Motuyisiza Mwamaso, translation of it is undermining the supremacy of the council. And Engineer Luimbazi, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
Now, picking it up from right there where you have shared with us figures, the council meeting costs up to the tune of about 13.5 million shillings, and you say that they have exhausted what was budgeted for them in the current financial year. But we do have the councillor here having alluded to us information that it was even never approved a budget for them in the first place. So where do you get the audacity to state that this is how much was given to them, this is how much that has been used by them without their approval or them checking their own accounts?
That's very interesting to begin with. I mean, every activity in the authority has a budget allocation. And for every budget allocation, there are a number of outputs assigned to it. For example, we normally have a budget of about 78 billion for road development. We have a target number of kilometers we can do with the 78 billion. Now again, with the 360 million that is allocated for council sittings, there is a finite amount of meetings they can hold with that amount of money. I think there's supposed to be about 20 to 23 meetings, if I'm not mistaken.
In an entire financial year?
In an entire financial year. Of course, there are standing committee meetings, there are council sessions, and other special council sessions as well. Now, we've spent a lot of time, about 5 council sessions have been aborting. While we are on the narrative that the cost of roads are so high. Now, we've been running down the budget. I mean, council's been running down its budget while focusing on, what should I call it? Not priority issues like passing the budget, which is now becoming an issue. And by so doing, right now we've run about, we've used about 330 million out of the 360 million they have for the financial year. And so as an authority, we don't have an unlimited budget. And to get...
And before we go any further, who got this budget approved? Because they're not aware of those approvals.
This is the budget for this financial. It was approved by Parliament, I think, in May last year.
And it wasn't taken through the council?
It went through the council. It went through the council. Yeah. Like, it's only... right now, they're trying to pass the budget.
Did you not attend that meeting through which the budget was presented to the council?
I've never failed to attend any council sitting. We did not approve the current budget. Actually, it is the same thing happening.
The budget for this financial?
Yes, we did.
Are you serious?
By the way, what I can say, that's why one of the reasons, even a deputy executive director is not even aware that the current budget we are implementing did not go through council.
Okay.
The same thing happening.
That shows a mishap
the same thing
how
happening.
Things are running between
the same thing happening,
his office and the council.
The same thing happening to the next financial year's budget. It was supposed to be handled tomorrow, yesterday, but it was already taken in Parliament by the Minister on 14th, on Tuesday. Yet we had confirmed the date of yesterday, 15th, to go through it and
Engineer
appropriate.
Luimbazi, how do we avert this not to happen again? This financial year is done and dusted. You have already presented one for the next financial year. How do we stop this from becoming a recurring factor that's causing the political wing and the technical wing to fight over and over again?
I don't think we're fighting per se. I think the political wing needs to be focused. The budget approval process has timelines, which cannot wait. Now, as KCCA, we run both as a central government and a local government. Running as a central government, we report to the Ministry of Kampala, Capital City and Metropolitan Affairs. That's our mother ministry, okay? As a local government, we submit to council. So we run parallel processes. Now, the purposes of running parallel processes so that council is informed as a local government, but it does not hinder us from continuing to get budget approved, because eventually the minister has to lay the budget on the table of Parliament, on the floor of Parliament. So what happened is that council got so diverted on non-issues, hence the timelines, the deadlines for passing the approvals getting passed, And the minister could not wait. Otherwise, the authority would have no budget for next financial year. And what would that mean for the citizens of Kampala? So, council has to be focused. Make sure that the timelines that are given to make approvals, and the sessions for which they're supposed to sit and consider the budget, they pay attention to it.
Is there room for reconsideration? For example, last year you did have Minister Chofa Togavie seeking for an additional about 17 billion Ugandan shillings to facilitate remuneration of KCCA political leaders. So right now, isn't there an alternative that we can buy into or adopt or apply to be able to then mitigate the challenges presently?
The challenges are even bigger than what my colleague is saying. Right now, next financial, we have the current allocation for road development is only 10 billion. Even the allocation for council sittings has been slashed due to the budget management measures. Due to COVID, the tax collections have reduced. So there's been a cut of about, I think, 40% across all sectors. Now, we're trying to fight for more money so that we're able to provide better services. Instead of focusing on that, we're focusing on other diversionary issues that are defeating the city. The floods in the city, those that should be the focus. How do we secure money to ensure that we line all the channels so that the flooding is averted? How do we get more money for dealing with the potholes in the city? That should be the focus that we should be dealing with.
Okay. This, Mr. Kiza, also relates to the backdrop of councillors. We most recently saw the confrontation, especially on road contractors. You were asking for accountability and wanting to have a review of the contracts that were given to the different companies, for which the technical wing said you are not fully allowed to take a look at the entire contract because of secrecy and all that. Now, this brings the idea that there's some sort of schemish action that's taking place here and there, which is deterring the processes that and the things that Mr. Yimbazi has talked about.
First of all, this is good because Engineer Yimbazi is here. He has just said that we had a budget of 360 million shillings for council allowances entirely for the financial year. We are 54 allowed councillors. It means that that money has to be divided into all the 54 councillors, the 360 million shillings. Engineer Yimbazi, him alone as a person, earns 27 million every month. If you multiply that money, it comes to 340 million shillings, him alone as a person. So where is the inequality between the two? A single person taking 340 million shillings and the 54 people taking 360. The second issue, he said that we focus on non-priority issues. The sittings, the previous sittings talking about, we are auditing the money alone we got from African Development Bank worth 288.
In the same period that you were supposed to be considering the budgets that have been allocated to you and which have timelines. So your priorities may be misplaced at the time?
It's not true. Because we gazetted the date of yesterday of 15th to handle the budget issues. Much as we had some issues, previous councils to handle some issues of accountability. What we said about, let me bring this out. Why some of these technicals are trying to run away and bring some excuses is because we are pointing at the issue of audit of that money, where they say that out of the 1,060 billion shillings, of which is equivalent to $288 million, we are going to construct 67 kilometers. If you divide that money into the 67 kilometers, each kilometer will go for 15.4 billion shillings, 1 kilometer. When you ask him, Engineer Yimbazi will tell you that no, a kilometer at Stay Hall is constructed at 5 billions. And as we say, hey, if we have that money, can we construct 200 kilometers? Yeah. Why do we insist on the 67 with the same amount of money? These are queries we are asking for. And we are asking, if you indicated that there is $11 million worth translated to 42 Uganda billion shillings for compensation, Why do you ask us to go to the community to ask land for free when there's money for compensation? These are questions these people are trying to run away from, and they are bringing in some issues.
He's right here. He's not running away. In response to what he has submitted, there's allocations that are made, and yet the way you're trying to handle these matters at the end of the day seems like you are misappropriating this money.
You know, these are things that really, really hurt me as a technical person and as a Ugandan. This project is financed by the African Development Bank. African Development Bank is a reputable organization with credible procedures, which are tried and tested. It's not operating in Uganda alone, in about 54 countries in Africa, and not financing projects in KCCA alone, National Roads Authority, Ministry of Water, Ministry of Agriculture, everywhere. Are you trying to tell me that the African Development Bank can be associated with a corrupt, flawed process that the councillors of the city of Kampala are able to figure out? We have the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Arts Authority overseeing what we're doing. We have the Inspectorate of Government overseeing what we're doing. We have the Auditor General overseeing what we're doing. All these contracts and processes go through procedures that are established by government to ensure that the outcomes are give value for money. The contracts were eventually sanctioned by the Attorney General. Apart from trying to disrupt, derail, discredit what we are doing,
Okay,
I don't understand.
Why do you not permit the council to also have a look at these contracts?
Between you and me, I don't think council is up to any good. The good thing we've got in guidance, before we were to share them with them the contract agreements, we sought guidance from the Solicitor General to guide us, because there are confidentiality clauses. If the African Development cannot entertain acts of, what should I call it? Because what is coming out is a negative media campaign, creating a situation as if they are corrupt or acts that are not in the interest of the country, which is not helpful to the projects.
Well, speaking of corruption, this country is surely riddled with corruption.
Yes.
Mr. Chiza, in regards to corruption, its tendency, the delays in these infrastructure projects and the substandard work that at the end of the day Kampalans are receiving when it comes to transparency of all of this in terms of funds allocation. What do you make of this? After all, Engineer Imbaze said the council is up to no good anyway.
First of all, I'll tell you, these agents like African Development Bank, they act on documents which are justifiable by the technicals who draft these concepts and the documents in regards to when they are requesting for funds. So if the same engineering embassy is the same person drafting that document, don't you think you could have some reasons and justifiable issues to convince African Development Bank? It is possible.
Okay.
Why do we ask you for contracts? Now, me, I reside in Namungona. We have just completed Kasui-Nabulagala Road in November, because I remember it started in June last year and it was completed. And actually, officially, they have not yet handed it over to KCCA. Can you imagine, in the same road which was constructed by Starring, it is developing potholes
already,
which has just been.
And what ought to be the sustainability of this road?
And this
How many years?
That is why I'm asking for a contract, so that I could get to know the lifespan of the roads which was entailed in the contract, so that I could get to know what is the nature of the road you agreed between KCCA and Starring. You know, these are reasons.
All right. Engineer Imbazi, honestly, I was driving through Kampala yesterday. It was quite disappointing that we seem to be growing potholes. And last month, I know that there was commitment by the council to actually have work started on different roads of Kampala, especially within the city center. What's holding the kickoff?
Of what?
of these road maintenance or road reconstruction works?
The key projects that we have that we're trying to implement right now are the 67 kilometers financed by the African Development Bank. Those are the ones that have been the subject of several council sessions that have depleted the budget that should have been used to consider the budget for this financial year. Right now, our priority is to redeem all the roads, because all the roads have superseded their lifespan. Our roads are on average about 40 to 50 years old. On average, a road should last about 15 to 20 years. Now, my colleague talks about the road near his place that is developing potholes before it's completed. You know, rather than come on TV, go on radio, make all this noise, go and report this to the Auditor General. Auditor General will investigate that matter. He'll get subject matter professionals to look into that matter. You go to the IGG, say, there is a problem here. Our colleagues have focused on going on TV, creating a narrative that does not reflect the true picture on the ground, instead of focusing on trying to get us to really account. It's more like a spectre where you're just trying to appear on TV, create all manner of noise without focusing on the real issues on the ground. Now I'll go back to the high cost of roads, which he keeps talking about. These roads are publicly advertised. International competitive bidding. No one is restrained from participating. All bidders submit their bids, and the lowest responsive bidder is selected. The one that gives us the lowest price and meets the requirements. He's the one that is awarded the contract. So it's a market-driven process. Now, how can you come back and say, oh, the technical wing has fixed the prices? It's all intended to mislead the public, create an impression as though we don't know what we're doing.
Okay, so Engineer Limbas, in conclusion, where do we go from here as us, the beneficiaries of the city?
The problems of Kampala are many. We are facing potholes, we are facing flooding, we have challenges of garbage, we have challenges of a dark city. Let's focus on these problems. These problems are what council should be sitting down with us and holding us to account. We should be looking for money and resources to fix those problems.
Speaking of council, I know that you have committed with fellow councillors to sit regardless of where there's funding for these sittings, so possible, which is something we commend you for. How do we then mitigate the challenge that we're seeing between the technical wing and the political wing to further the development of our city?
Actually, what I would say, Engineer Yimbas has always been talking about this issue where he says that in council there are no people who they cannot even interpret the documents. And actually even the State Minister for Kampala, Mr. Chofa, that is the knowledge they bring out to the public. For us, we are saying that we have a mandate, eyes on, hands off. You give us the document and we play our role. Okay. Like what I've said about Nabulagala Road, he says that I should go to the IGG. Why do I go there? I have the mandate to audit it. KCCA has audit committees, the audit committee in council, the internal audit directorate is a food department, park, and even us, we have a role to play. Why do we run first there before we do it at Stayhold? Therefore, I request that we still have space to reconcile. All right. The technical side should bring us documents. This is what we need, only that. So that we can play our role.
As we wait to see that, the good news is that you're both wearing the same color of it.